Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B, talking strategy for the Big Ten, 10K a little bit, pre-show, along with Matt doing his first official run. Was that your first official run in any race like that?
Yep.
Other than like track in high school, right?
Right.
Or did you just skip your events and throw?
No, I was bullied into running. I did all kinds of events.
My move was to like just throw javelin and then kind of just hang out and miss my other events. Like, you called me, you wanted me to run? Like, I missed that. Sorry, man. I'm like slot 8. I was like a freshman. I'm like, I'm slot 8. There's no way I'm even going to place in this race.
See, the downside of my football coach being my track coach is that there was no hiding. He knew where I was at all times.
See, he was my 9th grade coach. So I was going into my sophomore year, so I figured, he's not going to be coaching me anymore, right? He already knows I'm a jerk. But let's get rolling here. NFL, right at the beginning. Actually, no. Do you have anything for high tempo?
No.
I always miss high tempo. Yeah, I really don't have anything this week either. Most of the stuff we're to talk about is on the board, so we'll see if we can even get... Every time I say we're not going to hit an hour on the show, we're like over a little bit. So it's the off season. The big news coming in for the NFL Sunday ticket. So DirecTV used to have it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I know you were more into the Sunday ticket than I was. I think you had to have a DirecTV subscription, right, to even purchase it.
Yes.
It was like a package, but it was like $100 add-on or something, $150 or something like that. So I don't know what the exact. It might have been $200 like later. I'm thinking last time I looked into it was like 2013, so I could be way off. But I thought, and it might even have been a bonus that I was looking at, but I thought like you paid whatever 6 months, or was it 4 months? It was like September, October, November, December. I think it's 4 months. And then you paid the extra $150 or whatever it was, and you can get Red Zone and everything with it. So now YouTube TV bought it, and I had high hopes that they would just allow people to, pay. And I'll be honest, I knew that the price was like $100-something before, and I thought, well, I'm hoping that that's like their base offer if you have YouTube TV, and I'm hoping that they like offer a non-YouTube subscriber TV, whatever, to just pay for the ticket outright as like a streaming thing, because I think MLB kind of did this maybe back in the day, because I remember when the Braves got hot around that same time. I think it was the year we might have watched together, and the Braves end up losing. Was it the play-in game to St. Louis or something in the playoffs? One of the years, but I had MLB TV, but I didn't get it till like halfway through the season. So it was like prorated, where it was like, oh, it's only like $60 now, and you get the rest of the year or whatever. So I was hoping that the NFL ticket would kind of be like that, where you don't have YouTube TV, but you only want to pay for a month. Hey, it's $30, But now it's like, if you don't have YouTube TV, it's $300-something. So if you split that across 4 months, you're almost paying $100 a month. It's like $80 a month just for football.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess it's okay if you're thinking about it in terms of like, hey, if I go to the game, it's $50 to $80. If I sit at home, it's $10-$20, or it's probably going to be 20 or more. Is that worth it? Like if you're a guy that hosts parties. But I'm looking at this in terms of, can you buy single games? Because I'm 99% sure that I know the NBA used to do it. I think for their NBA TV or NBA ticket, whatever it is, you can just buy a game. And this sounds like a degenerate talking. If you're gambling on a game, say, and it was at the end of the game, to watch it, it was like $1. Like if the game had already started and you're like, let me just bet on this fourth quarter, you could join in for like 50 cents if you're bored and bet like $20 in the game, and you could pretend you're paying like $21 to watch it, but really you're just paying the $1. And you're gambling on it. And some of them were even free. They had free game nights, which is also good if you're like into the gambling, where I know NHL had this. That's why I said 99% sure. So like every night on if you had the NHL TV app, like on your Xbox or PlayStation or something, your Roku, you log in and you'll see whatever the free game is. And then you could kind of just, like, if you're bored that night, just do a bunch of prop bets or whatever. Not giving advice on the show. No legal advice. So if you lose all your money, don't blame me. But if you do win some, you can, like, throw it to us. Go to southboundsports.com, check out the show, and let me know. Let me know, if you're doing it. That's the hookup right there if you're really poor. You can just watch whatever's free. But the NFL, I wonder now, like, can you do it? But before I get into what do you think? Are you interested in Sunday Ticket now?
I'm not now that we're going to get every Steelers game. Like, I'm going to have every Steelers game local. And there were times, like, when I did buy it, I really, like, depending on who I drafted on my fantasy team, I would follow. Like, when I was consistently having Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, like, I followed the Falcons a good bit. And I wasn't, like, they're not a team that you're traditionally going to have. Like, even in the North Carolina market, you're not going to have a lot of their games broadcast. So it was, like, I like to be able to pull those games up. And then what I didn't realize until, like, much later was that I want to say that if you have your Sunday Ticket, I think that that's good for a year. So, like, if you really want to be obsessive and can go back after the fact, maybe it's changed, but at one point, like, you could go back and watch, like, some of the different camera angles from, like, I want to say they went back to, like, the early 2000s, if not earlier.
I think you're right, and I don't want to confuse the two, but I know that they changed something over COVID. But I think before, it was kind of like, I don't want to say they were tricking you, but it's kind of like the Big Ten Network, like Plus or whatever. Oh, you buy for your team, but you're locked in for the whole year. Like, right? Because if you're paying for Sunday tickets, they're like, instead of them making you say, like, oh, you're paying $100 for 4 months. Oh, you're paying $300 something for the whole year, so it's really only $20 a month or something. And it's like, yeah, but most of the months you're not showing anything. And so to get around that, they're like, oh, no, we put on NFL films. Or, like, we'll show you locker room footage. It's like, yeah, that's what I want to see. A bunch of dudes changing after a game. like, who's that for? Like, you have to be a real diehard if you're watching the locker room interview, right? Instead of just listening, like, on the radio or something. It's like, I want to see what he looks like after the game. Is that really him out there? Like, Tom Brady comes in and he, like, takes his jersey off and it's like some other guy, and then Tom Brady, like, just comes in. He's like a body double for Tom Brady because he's so old. And that what is the point of watching, like, the actual locker room stuff? And they try to create drama, and that's what kind of annoys me, because people are like, do you watch Hard Knocks? It's like, why am I watching a documentary on a team that wins 3 games? Like, what are you doing here? Because, like, we talked about it, like, a couple years ago, but even, like, Michigan football did that one on Amazon, and it was one of the years they went, like, 8-4 or something like that. And it's like, going back and watching how close they were to, like, you know, having a good season. It's like, this documentary is just brutal. Because I knew, like, Iowa, I had some of, like, the Iowa tapes before, like, back in the day when they would do, like, highlight films for the whole year. I thought that was cool, like, just focusing, like, on the highlights or whatever. And it was kind of like I don't even know how long it would be, but it was like when they didn't have all the games on TV. This is back in, like, the 90s. They would have, like, these highlight films that would come out, and they'd be, like, super cheap, and you could watch, like, all the highlights or whatever from all the games as, like, a recap. So I like when the NFL offers that, but, like, I would watch that the same week of the game. Or, like, say the Packers are out of market, so I want to watch the game, and I can avoid it, right? Probably not if I'm checking fantasy football. Like, if my team stunk, then maybe I could watch it and not be spoiled. But if I'm competing and my opponent has a Packer, like, I would know the score, right? So that's where my thing is. It's like, what are the odds of me actually, like, watching any of their bonus stuff? Maybe the All-22 would be cool if we could use it on the show. But every time we try to do something cool like that, it just gets taken down with copyright stuff. And at this point, it's like just depressing to even like, oh, we should try to do something cool like that. Coach can come on and draw like some stuff, and you're like, yeah, let's do it. And then, nah, we can't do anything like that. So great work, NFL. It's like, you're paying for the service. Can we use it in any way? It's like, no, not even any images or anything. They're real strict to take the videos down. And it's like, they don't even let people watch the video. Because like, that's the one thing that drives me nuts is like, other people can put up, like if you're doing movies or video games or something, they'll still show the video. It'll just say that like, no, the revenue is going to Nintendo or someone instead. But like for the NFL, it's like, nah, you can't even do that. You have to like reverse it and like play it backwards and like slant it and like a bunch of other weird stuff. Or you have to just be one of their partners. So I don't know. That's what kind of also rubs me the wrong way. It's like, you're paying all this money. Can you do anything with it? It's like, no. So they're like trying to like, I don't want to say swindle you, but I get it if they were pitching it correctly. Like, hey, buy individual team games for $20 instead of going to the stadium, or pay the whole ticket for whatever it is per month. But they know that people aren't going to pay after the 4 months. Everyone's going to cancel. You're not paying in January because all the games are free on TV. So like, they have to kind of trick you into keeping it active. And I just don't get it. That's why I think colleges, when they talk about like streaming, the NFL might make more money, but like, I think colleges have a better package that they can put together than some of the other sports. Baseball's kind of on its own because there's like nothing on in the summer. If the World Cup's going to keep being in the fall now or whatever they did, like it was like around the holidays last year, it's like, all right, what's on in the summer? The Olympics? People watching that? It's all on tape delay. I can't even watch it knowing that it's on tape delay. Right?
Well, it's like there's so much stuff that's already reported before you watch it.
And it's like, hey, I want to watch that. It's like, you can watch it in 2 hours. It's like, I already know what happens. What are you talking about? Like, the person that wins the gold isn't going to tweet it and their name's going to be trending, so you already know. So even if you're trying to like avoid it, it's still going to show up everywhere. Right? That's what always gets me. It's like, well, we have to show it at primetime. We can't start it at 5. Meanwhile, like the college basketball championship game, they're like, we have to start it after 9:30. Like, gotta let all the performers go. It's like, can't find a happy middle ground. But that's my thing. I did have some stats on this. So the Packers last year, 12 games were national, Matt. So I would have been paying for, would they have 17 games? 5 games, right?
Yeah.
That's insane. That's like me paying like $80. I could just go to any random game at that point or whatever. And that's me guessing on the math. I don't know. Because like if you're paying without the ticket, and I know there's a discount for paying early. I did have the full prices. Maybe I should say that, so I'm not just generalizing. I did send it to Matt. So if you're a subscriber, it's $349 just for the ticket. If you want Red Zone, it's $389. That's if you're paying for YouTube TV. And so to me, that's still expensive. If you want to pay for it early, it's $249 for the ticket, $289 with Red Zone. If you don't subscribe to YouTube, it's $449 or $489 with Red Zone. And like, when you're getting up to like $500, that's like getting a new computer. If not, if you're into gaming, I know, but like that's like getting a new console. You can get a Nintendo Switch and have a couple $100 left over for that money.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, why am I doing this when I can just watch the other games for free? It's not like, because they still do blackouts. So you still need to pay for an antenna for the other games. And so like, I've been telling people, the first thing you want to do if you're like not sure if you want to do this, stop. Like Matt said, get an antenna. They're at Walmart. There's a whole section on them. You can get them on Amazon for less than $30. They're like little, no, they're not plastic, but they're like some type of like a square. But it's kind of like a bendable plastic. where you can kind of bend it. Like what I did is I hung mine in the attic with like a little tack that came with it, and I kind of bent it so that it like faces the direction of the antenna, and it's very easy to do. You go on is it PBS or somewhere? Or maybe it's like the government website. You type in on the internet like, hey, TV signal locations, and it will tell you like where your house is. You put in your address, and it'll say you have so-and-so station, ABC, Fox coming from the west. So then you get a compass, find out which direction in your house is west, and then face your antenna to that direction. If you have one coming from like the west and the north, you just bend it so that one side's pointing at the west and one side's pointing from the north. Honestly, you can kind of keep it flat because most of them kind of come from the two directions, and you can kind of angle it. So it's kind of a two-person job.
Or you just kind of turn it and wiggle until you hear the TV's on the right channel.
Putting it in the attic, you get the better signal because it's not like coming through insulation and stuff. I mean, I guess kind of, but usually the insulation's not on like your ceiling part or the roof part. So it's in the higher air, so there's less interference of like trees and brush and stuff. So having it up there, you get a lot more channels anyway. But it's a two-man job because someone has to be down making sure that like it comes in. But once you hang it, like I got my house years ago, haven't touched them since, and they all work fine. The only one that kind of is wonky is ABC changed their broadband. I think it's ABC because like I texted you once because like the mouth sometimes gets out of sync for whatever reason. I don't know if it's my TV, but if you go down a channel and then go back up, the audio will resync. And I'm like, why? And it makes zero sense because it's not like they're even broadcasting it in 4K. Fox broadcast the Michigan game against Ohio State in 4K. Comes in perfect. Clear as day. It's awesome. I have two TVs, so you can like set up the app and watch one view with like Charles Woodson waving a flag. It's pretty awesome on one TV, and then have the main broadcast on the other TV. And it's great. And you can do that for the NFL. And there's always two games, usually at 1 p.m., not 1 a.m. So you have the two 1 p.m. games. If you have two TVs, you can set up the CBS game on one and the Fox game on the other. Then the game of the week's usually on Fox at 4. Sometimes it kind of shifts around. You have to kind of be careful. But if you have it on at 4, then that's it. And then I think it changes to NBC on Sunday night. So you're getting, 4 games on Sunday for free? And if you live near your favorite team, then you're going to get all of their games. So you don't have to pay for this at all. This really only hurts people that like kind of live out of the area of their team. Like the Steelers last year, it might have been worth it for me to watch them. But if I'm being honest, even though it wasn't a national game, the Steelers still get shown in my area. So even though the Packers, like I said, they had 12 games out of the 17 national. That means that everyone can watch them, right? But if you live kind of close, and let's say the competing national game or something, like there's not a national game at that time, like at 1 p.m., 1 p.m. shows an AFC game and an NFC game. In the NFC, or in North Carolina, we get the NFC game. That's always the Carolina Panthers. The AFC game is a crapshoot. Sometimes we get the national, like if there's a national game at that time, we'll get it. A lot of times, if the national game is the Carolina Panthers game or something, then we'll get a random game, which could just be the Steelers because they're close to us too. So I get a lot of extra Steelers games that a lot of other areas don't get. And we also get a lot of random games like Jets for some reason. For that same reason, I think. Now, someone living in an AFC area like you might get another random NFC team like Washington or Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I guess you'd probably have two because you're in the mix. You'd probably get Philly and Pittsburgh games. Where we don't have that, so we get a random AFC solution of Steelers or Jets for some reason. I don't even know if there's another team that would be closer. Bengals, but we don't normally get them. So do your research. Don't just say, oh, nice and shiny new NFL ticket. Do I need this? Are you going to watch it? I don't know. But it would be hard for me to even say, like, hey, $500 around that, because I'm sure they add tax, is like a hard sell for any family, right? Because like that's like a camping trip, that's a vacation, you know. You could go to like 5-10 movies for that, right? Yeah. We talked pre-show about going to see the Super Mario Brothers movie. Our tickets were like $20, man. So you take a family for that, because there's like a matinee for like $5-6. How that's going to be a hard sell to be like, hey, here's 6 Packers games, nice. Because it's not like, and I don't want to tell them to do this, but like, it's not like the Thursday night game and the Monday night game are only on the NFL. I think they're blacked out because they're on ESPN or whatever, right? That would be the only way that I could see getting it, is if you made sure you got every other game and the only blackout was your local game. But maybe I'm wrong, because I thought I read the blackout restriction, and this is maybe on the past, but the blackout restriction said that it could be any game that's considered national, which would mean the Thursday night game, it's not going to be on Sunday Ticket. It's going to be on Amazon Prime or whatever it's on, right?
But I guess that, to me, if you're paying that much money, you should still be able just to get every single, like, just go to the app and have access to whichever game. Like, don't make me jump around. Well, this is on your local channel, and this is on this channel. Like, I'm paying all this money for the convenience of going to one place. Like, just leave it at that.
Well, that's my worry for the NFL.com app or whatever, NFL app. Because remember, we tested it last year for a random game. I think it was Packers in like England or something, where you could watch that one for free. After that, it was like $20, and you could watch your local team from your phone only or a tablet. And but at home, they expect you to pay for the antenna. But I'm like, all right, that's cool if you're traveling. You can throw up like an iPad or something and watch the game. So then if you're traveling, can you watch the team like on the Sunday Ticket, or do you have to pay for NFL.com for that team? Right? Is that like, does YouTube TV know that's your local team, so you're blacked out based on your billing address? Even if I'm like traveling to like Florida or something. Because like, what if, say, you take your family to Disney or something? Does it go by your physical location?
Well, if you're putting in, like with the ESPN app, I had to put in like who my TV provider is and stuff like that, so that.
Remember that like, one time, at one point with the old ESPN3, I had traveled from like Michigan to Pennsylvania to North Carolina down to Florida or Georgia or something like that, and I had like the entire East Coast was blocked out for me because they didn't know where I actually lived. It's like, that's like your own personal nightmare. It's like, what the heck? And you couldn't like trick them because they were like, well, you're logged into a device here. It's like, yeah, I know. I was going to some Michigan games and watching other games like at the hotel, you know, Friday nights, Saturday mornings. And it's like, yeah, but then you're also signed in North Carolina. It's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Family was watching games, you know. It's like, so they knew you're traveling, but I don't know, is like YouTube going to be that strict? That's what I'm wondering. Like, is it physical location? Because they know both. Or is it tied to billing? Because I thought one of them, maybe MLB, was always always based on billing. So even if I was blacked out of like, which MLB is kind of a joke, because some parts of North Carolina are blacked out from the Braves, the Orioles, and the Nationals. So that's 3 out of 30 teams, right? It's like, sorry, fellas. You can't watch any games. Because in theory, unless they're playing each other, you're not watching 6 teams that day. And if you're there, if your favorite team's like in the division with the Braves and the Nationals, and in like, let's say, my favorite team is the Marlins, and 2 of the teams in their division are blocked out, you're going to miss a ton of their games. Right? Because it's not like down here in North Carolina, the local TV shows baseball games. The local TV shows Durham Bulls. They don't show any MLB. So it's a whole other nightmare. I don't know. I don't want to talk about. I don't have anything else to add, I guess. You have anything else you want to add on it?
No.
All right. Just a little break here. XFL, we finally have 2 playoff seeds locked up. I don't know I guess DC probably locked us up a week or 2 ago. Maybe not because St. Louis and Seattle are only 2 games apart. But DC came back and won. I was worried they're going to lose 3 games in a row and be done. But they clinched, not the division, but a playoff berth. And then Houston ended up clinching their division.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how the playoffs work. I think it's only the top 4 teams, right?
Right.
So it should be like right now, DC would play St. Louis and Houston would play Arlington. And that would be your playoffs. And I think that it's going to be at home stadiums, right? It should be like the NFL playoffs.
That's what I'm thinking.
I don't even know where the championship would be. Like if DC went through to the championship because they have the best record, would they be the home game?
I think so, because they would have the better record.
That's what I'm hoping. Because you never know. Like, didn't baseball do like, hey, whoever won the All-Star game? So it could be something crazy like, hey, we will do a coin flip. You know? Or we'll rotate. Didn't one of them do odds and evens? Maybe that was baseball too.
I don't remember.
They did like odds and evens based. Maybe I'm wrong though, but that's the one thing. So like XFL coming down, not doing too bad. Like people were concerned about them not even finishing the year, right?
Yeah, but I don't know where that was coming from.
Well, did we talk about it on the show? I don't know if I found it after, but looking at the actual deal, ESPN has the rights locked up and guaranteed through like 3 or 4 years. And it's a good gamble by them because now, like, if right now, say ESPN Plus, if everyone's watching it on ESPN Plus, it is a good subscription seller. And to your point and my point, like, going back to like NFL Ticket, you don't have to worry about blackouts on ESPN Plus. The games are all there. I really liked it for hockey. I guess that should have been my high tempo. I think the Big Ten is just cursed, right? Michigan loses on pucks that are being deflected back off the back of the goalie. And then Minnesota has a lead in the championship game, and they blow it in overtime. And I text someone was like, hey, Minnesota better not blow this. I text them, I'm like, Big Ten's cursed. Of course they're going to blow it. And you're texting me that they better not blow it, so you know that they are, right? It's like, I know that, like, watching that, but the cool thing with that is I can watch every game on ESPN Plus. I know it's not big-time NHL or whatever, but for the good most part, you're watching it for free. I mean, not for free, but if you're paying the one subscription, I would like to see more sports that people typically aren't going to pay. Most people aren't going to pay for the Big Ten Plus add-on, which was where that game used to be. Or I guess it was on NBC Sports, which it doesn't exist anymore. But having it in one spot where you can kind of flip back and forth between UFC, hockey, baseball is nice. I just wish that they would have more of a package option. And honestly, I would like to see, instead of like having an MLB TV, it would be nice to have like a favorite teams add-on for ESPN Plus because they already pay. Or did they lose MLB? I think they have MLB still, right? One of them lost MLB, so I don't want to be talking crazy.
MLB always just has like the craziest with their like packaging and blackouts and how they do their coverage. Like
Apple TV, yeah. So Apple TV did buy them. And remember how I kept saying how I want the Big Ten to be bought by them because I think it would be easier? Wrong. I was wrong, so I admit it. Apple TV Baseball is now going to be $6.99 a month on top of Apple Plus. Or Apple TV Plus. So instead of it being like $5, I told you I thought they would just raise prices altogether to $9.99.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't be bad if you're adding in baseball and the Big Ten. But if you're charging me $6.99 for baseball, would I also have to pay an extra $6.99 for the Big Ten?
Yep.
Because then you're getting into triple the price. And at that point, it's like, is it worth it?
And then you definitely have to pay.
So ESPN Plus is also carrying random games, so probably not as many as they used to do. And then Peacock has Sunday games. But like, what are the odds of me figuring out, hey, the Braves are on Peacock? I'd never know that. Right? Maybe I guess the app probably tells you if they're going to be on that, though. Right? I don't have the apps. I don't like getting a ton of notifications anymore. I'm getting too old for that. But that's my other beef. I'm kind of getting back to the NFL stuff. So, anything you want to talk about before we get to college?
No, I mean it's nothing that we haven't railed about in the past, but it's just if you go through these, like the way they're packaging it, and you can't find the games, it's going to make the viewership that much more complicated. When you have to like take the extra steps of like looking to see where they are, and like the NFL model is so much more convenient because you know consistently when the main games are on, and like you may not know specifically which teams are playing, but you know exactly like when there's going to be games on. And if you want to you're doing stuff around the house, you're like, I just want to have a game on as background noise, like you know at this time, this channel, and we're good to go.
That's the only bummer with having to watch like NFL and some college football games like with the antenna is if you have like other stuff going on, like if you have kids or whatever and they're playing a game or something at the same time, it's not like you can just have the antenna to your phone, right? So you have to have a stream. And so that's where I would say I would be willing to do whatever the Big Ten, like if it went with ESPN Plus, awesome. Then I can watch it. They went with NBC. I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. Is it going to be like $10 a month, $20 a month? Is that going to be something that's going to be worth it? Because if you're paying $10 a month, but all the big national games are blacked out, so that like if I'm driving somewhere, like you're at a wedding, you can't even stream the game, what's the point of paying the $10 a month? Michigan's always going to be on TV. Other than like the 3 contracted games where they're not, I'm going to be able to watch them, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're an Indiana fan, like I feel for you, man. Like I know trying to watch like old Iowa games too. They used to be, I made the joke about them being on ESPN2 every week. Like that was consistent though. Like if I wanted to have a 2 TV setup and watch some Big Ten football, you could have Michigan on one, Iowa on the other, and you're good to go. Right? So it's like now if I was always on ESPN Plus, that's awesome. I can keep an eye on them. But going to like another team that's like a mix, like a Penn State, where most of their games are on TV, but not all of them. Like they're a tier below Ohio State and Michigan. I think Ohio State and Michigan are always like the first 2 picks. And then Penn State, there's like 3 or 4 games a year where they're not going to be there. So does like paying for Peacock help their fans? I guess Nebraska would kind of be in the same boat, more so now because like they've been bad. So if you're bad, and I brought up the Packers earlier, if Aaron Rodgers leaves, Packers won't be on 12 national games next year. Like, are you kidding? Collinsworth brings up Aaron Rodgers randomly. That would be switched. The Jets would be on TV the most. Right? It's like, all right. So there are some questions, and people, they keep saying like, you're wrong about streaming, because I've been talking about streaming for feels like forever. And I'm telling them like, no, it's coming. People are still keeping their cable because you have to. If there was a streaming where I could watch all the games, whether I'm at home, whether I'm in the car, driving somewhere, you're the passenger and you have the game propped up on your phone as you're driving somewhere, that's a good thing to do, right? People travel in the fall. So it's like, oh, no, you can't do that. Wrong. No, you can't do that. And then they're like shutting down all these other streaming sites. It's like, those exist because the options are shit. If you gave people a good, like if the streaming site exists for the reason of people like, they need to watch the game because they can't get it anywhere else. It's sort of like when people would download tons of music for free on like Napster or whatever back in the day. And it's like, wow, Napster doesn't exist anymore. Well, the regulations really killed it. It's like, no, you can stream music for free everywhere now. You can go on YouTube and stream all the songs you want. So it's not that they got rid of the downloading. It's just that they made it more convenient to do it elsewhere. Same with like streaming movies and stuff. Only like complete psychos still download all their movies and keep it on like a box, right? You have to almost be insane, I think, to say like you're like hoarding. It's like the show Hoarders. They'll have like a digital version, except it won't be as visually appealing because they'll just be scrolling through like just files and files that they have had downloaded over the years. It's like, you have Airbud 12 on here? Why? It's like,
well, I had to complete the set.
Yeah, because Land Before Time has like 28 musicals, that dinosaur movie, and I've always wondered, like, who's still buying this? Like, I see it at Walmart, it's like, oh, Land Before Time, I remember that movie. It's like, oh no, Land Before Time 28, nah. I guess I haven't seen that one. Just put on streaming, put on YouTube at that point. If you're doing like sing-alongs, I don't know. That's what I want. I want to be able to just sign up, watch your teams, and go for it. If you're making it confusing where you're downloading 4 apps just to follow your team, I think a lot of people just have to give up. Because, like, why would you want to go through the trouble? But let's get into college football. The big news, before I get into the Kingsbury story, the ACC commissioner is extended. They locked him up. Did you see that?
No.
Try to keep him from going to the Big Ten. The Big Ten, their new commissioner, it was leaked a little bit ago. I guess not leaked, but they're talking about it today, is going to be the former Major League Baseball television head or something like that. I don't have his name up, but I think about it, and I'm kind of glad. They talked about the ACC commissioners' triumphs of having like 3 teams win national championships last year. NC State's cross country, was it the Tar Heels field hockey, and then Syracuse won in something, I think. And I thought, like, that's their win? Is like having 3 championships? And then they talked about having basketball teams in the Final Four. It's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of good. But, like, what did you do in football? It's like your team, you're hiring the commissioner of a conference where people are actively in mutiny right now. Doesn't seem like a good move. And then we've already talked about how Major League Baseball television's a mess. So the Big Ten's like, let's add more chaos. We're going to bring in this guy. What are you going to do? Pretty soon, well, I guess I won't have to worry about Michigan games being blacked out. Unless he draws a map where it's like, Michigan fans go all the way around the world. Ohio State fans go all the way around the world. So you're blacked out of both those teams. And you're in the North Carolina region, so that includes Penn State, Rutgers, and Maryland. And I'll be like, what the hell? Half the teams are blacked out in North Carolina? That's when I know that Major League Baseball has taken over the Big Ten. But I guess most people don't have thoughts on it. Do you have any thoughts on the commissioner stuff?
I don't, but it's one of those things that it doesn't affect you until it does.
Well, that's why I'm going to play conspiracy here. The Major League Baseball one is interesting because they focused on getting major markets, right, and keeping like some of their regional stuff. And it's where the Big Ten has been living with their past realignment. And everyone keeps talking about how it's over, like no one's going to add a Rutgers anymore. But if this guy comes in, we've already added California, we've already added LA. The next 2 big states are Texas and Florida, right? Does the Big Ten have to touch? Do all the states have to touch? Not anymore. You already added California. So what is this guy? What's going to be the move? Like for Fox, you've already lost Texas and Oklahoma. Can you get Texas to jump back? Because technically, a college hasn't like joined a conference until they've actually started play, right? So, with something crazy, like if they offered the Big Ten something crazy for like to get Oklahoma and Texas to jump back? Would people even be surprised? And then on the other hand, at what point, if you're ESPN, do you start to get worried that the SEC doesn't start to just get picked apart, right? Because, like, yeah, you're adding Texas and Oklahoma. What if the Big Ten's like, you know what, we want to add Florida. We want to add Florida and Alabama. And if you lose two heavy hitters like that, it's the same as whenever ESPN kept pitching that, oh, Michigan and Ohio State are going to leave the Big Ten. Yeah, the Big Ten would be scared shitless if you're another team, right? You know who's bringing the money in. So, and then everyone kept saying Penn State's going to go join the ACC, which would just be hilarious to me.
Well, it's one of those like where I think that's the two components that you need to look out for are how are you structuring the conference, and then if you get a run, and I don't see the Big Ten having a run where people are trying to leave, but if they're leaving, who's replacing them? Because that seems to be the big issue with a lot of these programs is that if they're losing, you know, a team that's going to help keep them financially viable, or they're the team that brings the most money in, and then that team leaves, like it hangs everybody else out to dry. So it's trying to like keep that conference together.
And the one thing that like a point that I'm bringing up for the Major League Baseball side is Major League Baseball has been fine for television of just having body bag teams like the Pirates, right? They don't care if Michigan's crushing Northwestern or well, it was a game. It was the anniversary of Michigan crushing Rutgers 78-0, where they had more. Michigan had more first downs than Rutgers had yards at one point or something like that. And it's like, and maybe more points than they had yards. But it's like, okay, awesome. What did that do for the viewership? It's like people were tuning in on like a Big Ten random day just because the game was so crazy. Jabril Peppers was running wild, getting his Heisman, but basically brought him into the Heisman combo that game. And so I think MLB of any other team, like league knows, hey, we need to keep the Yankees and Red Sox fans happy, and the Cubs fans, even though they haven't been winning. They could do the same exact thing for the Big Ten. Say like, hey, we know we make more money than the SEC, so either ESPN has to pony up, or I think they have to risk losing some of those schools. Florida, Texas A&M, they all fit the mold of the Big Ten. And just like Florida State's complaining right now, hey, how the hell are we supposed to compete when we're $30 million under, right?
Yeah.
What's to stop Florida from looking at the finances and saying, well, how are we supposed to compete with Alabama every year when Rutgers is making $30 million more than us and we're already behind the stuff at Alabama? The only way to make it up would be to jump to the Big Ten and make more money than them off the bat. And that's exactly what teams were doing. That's exactly what A&M did, right? Weren't competing in the Big 12. Hadn't won. Did they ever win the Big 12? Missouri was begging to get out of the Big 12, right?
Yeah.
So most of these schools, when they leave, they're not like coming together and like forming superpowers. Texas wasn't competing in the Big 12. So they were like, we're going to try to get the money. Let's go to the SEC. It's not like that they think that they can jump in and win the SEC. It's that they weren't even winning the Big 12. If Michigan, like when they were going through their slump, if they would have jumped to the SEC and everyone would have been like, yeah, it's for the money. But the Big Ten was making the most money, so them leaving would have been nothing. It would have been like a lose-lose for them. Now they're winning the Big Ten, making the most money, and it's awesome, right? You don't have to worry about anything. If anything, it's like, hey, if we're going to leave the Big Ten, what super conference are we forming? Who are going to be playing? Like that's the one thing that's like, I don't know. On the other hand, the other story, Cliff Kingsbury leaves the NFL. I don't know how this dude keeps getting jobs, Matt. He said he's going to Thailand?
Yeah.
Relaxing. Did he get some heat over there? How much relaxing can you get in like 3 months, right?
Well, maybe he was just taking the edge off, was doing some Muay Thai fighting.
Maybe he found out it was way more anxiety inducing over there, and he's like, I got to get back. I got to get back to football. And he joined USC as like a quarterback coach.
Yep.
And now there's rumors that he might be the head coach in waiting for some reason, because they think that Lincoln Riley is going to jump to the NFL next year. This is all coming from new Big Ten sources of our Big Ten brothers, USC, which also reminded me, because like I talked about Florida joining the Big Ten at some point. Then Michigan's 3 true rivals would be on the schedule, Ohio State, USC, and Florida, which would be an unfair advantage to us, right? You can't have our 3 toughest rivals playing every year. That'd be insane. Michigan State would be so upset. I did see that Michigan basketball, we're having a nice challenge game with Florida next year. I thought, what a great rivalry we have with them. Play them all the time. If Florida came through and they're like, hey, we're best friends with Michigan, we're just going to join the Big Ten. It would be nice to have someone at our table that would be on our side, other than Ohio State always trying to cut us down, dude.
And of course, like, you get that downturn Florida, not the superpower Florida.
I don't know anything about that was in basketball. I don't know anything about their basketball team. Football schedules are kind of up in the air because of the conferences expanding, both conferences. I don't think SEC or the Big Ten are really scheduling out-of-conference opponents. Because I saw a thing about Notre Dame was trying to get some Big Ten teams back, and I thought, yeah, of course they are. Like, why would they not? These Big Ten just got 2 teams in the playoffs. Why would they not try to get that hype? The early picks from ESPN are that we're going to have a playoff of Georgia, Bama, Michigan, and Ohio State next year, Matt. 2 power conferences much? like in the past, they always threw like a Clemson in there and maybe not even had a Big Ten team. They would have had Oregon in there. But now it's like they're not even sugarcoating it. They're like, yeah, we know what it's like. We're just going to have Ohio State, Michigan playing Georgia and Bama. And if half of that happens, then we can say we were 50% right, which is better than most, right? I see people complain. They're like, oh, you idiot, you didn't pick Bama. It's like, do you want them to pick new teams or not? Like, you can't have both. You can't make fun of the Bama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State pick, and then you can't make fun of like an Oklahoma State, Clemson, or Florida State pick with Penn State and someone else. Like, what do you want, buddy? What do you want? You're not going to be 100% either way. So, I don't know. Kingsbury, if you're the head coach in waiting, you must be the luckiest dude of all time. Weren't even good at Texas A&M or Texas Tech. He was hired as a quarterback coach at USC for like a day, maybe a month, and then he got the NFL job. Now he's back to quarterback coaching at USC. Does that mean a head coach offer's coming? Or is he just going to be USC's head coach? Which, for the record, I would be fine. I'm fine with the 7-5 USC football team. Right? We don't need them to be good. We don't need them to be good. If their chance was last year keeping Ohio State out of the playoffs, and they blew it, Matt. That's not what best friends do. So, I don't know. Anything else, college, you want to talk about?
No.
I did have one more thing. It's going to be for my final bell, but I can't believe, Matt, that you didn't bring up Florida State, going back to the homeland, the land of all Seminoles, Ireland, having a game over there. I thought, like, wow, what a great heritage game. Florida State. What a great connection they must have. Right?
I mean that just goes with the territory of being a national program. People are finally starting to get on board and recognize that they're heading in the right direction. So nothing like setting myself up for some major heartache.
Well, they're playing Georgia Tech. And I was thinking, like, is Georgia Tech even Irish? I looked up Georgia Tech Irish, and the first thing that pops up is, they played Notre Dame and lost 55-0. And I thought, oh, okay. I didn't even know anything about Georgia Tech. But they're returning to Ireland was the headline. So has Georgia Tech have some Irish thing that I don't know about? And they're just like, we're going to pick a team. They played Boston College. Boston's a big Irish city, right? So that makes sense. But when it's like, Georgia Tech's coming back, baby, and we're bringing Florida State with us, the first thing I thought was like, there's nothing further than it should be like BYU playing there. Like, what are you guys doing here?
Well, I know, like last year, people were pissed that they're having the LSU game played at a neutral site because they're like, well, we're going to miss out on a home game for this, like, for this matchup. It's like, but you're playing in Orlando. It's not like you're having this matchup in, like, Alaska or Washington.
Is it in the National Champs Stadium, UCF?
Yes. The Champ Sports Bowl.
I don't know how they would be upset. LSU single-handedly saved Mike Norvell's career last year. Right? If they don't beat LSU... Well, actually, if LSU's not good, right? If LSU would have went 3-10, that wouldn't have mattered. But the fact that LSU was in the playoff discussion late in November last year, people might forget. Who did they lose to? They were right there. ESPN was really pushing for them to get in. If they would have beat Bama, I think. And then everyone kept saying, well, they lost to Florida State. So, like, having that win kept Florida State nationally relevant. It's like
just continuing to develop players out of the transfer portals was helping them.
Well, that's what made it tough for Michigan to get rid of Brady Hoke, right? Because they had the signature win in the Orange Bowl against Virginia Tech, even though it was kind of just like a weird ended, like, here, Michigan, you just take it game, right? So it's like Brady Hoke is like, well, he had 11 wins and he won the Orange Bowl. Like, not many programs even win BCS bowls. Notre Dame doesn't do that. So it's hard to fire a guy when it's like that. And so Norvell now has a signature win. I mean, Harbaugh, every signature win Harbaugh had, beating Florida, beating this, it was kind of like, well, not a big game anymore. Oh, beating Notre Dame bad? Oh, that didn't matter. Something happened. Like it was raining that day, right? So it's like, now that he beat Ohio State twice, no one can say anything because he won 2 Big Ten champs. And so, like, that's the next step for Norvell, right? Someone might look back and say that LSU win didn't mean anything. It was Brian Kelly's first year. But if they win the ACC this year, that's something that most coaches, other than, Narduzzi has won? Right?
I think.
Or did Wake win it that year? I think Pitt won it.
Yeah, Pitt won it.
Oh, yeah, because they have one more than Miami, right? So,
yeah.
I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that needs to be the next step for Florida State to be relevant. Because if my thing comes true and Florida jumps like the SEC, then I could see them getting Florida State like right away, and maybe Miami. But like, what if Miami joins the Big Ten? I keep hearing people say, "Oh, Duke and Miami are going to join the Big Ten." I just don't see it. Duke doesn't bring anything. Miami, yeah, but not Duke. Let's see, what is it? Yeah, Pitt won.
They're practically the same team at this point.
This is going to be heartbreaking to hear, Matt. But Florida State is now lapped by Clemson. Clemson has 8 ACC champs since this format, and Florida State only has 4. So, not a good look, dude. Virginia Tech, if they ever got their head out of their ass, they could be tied with Florida State for second in 1 year. That's going to be my ending for the show.
I was just going to end it very depressingly.
Oh, no, that's not depressing for Pitt fans. They have 1. They're 3 away from being better than Florida State in the ACC, and they've only been there for like what, a couple years, right? Virginia Tech's been there longer. Pitt's right there. There's actually only been 6 teams that have won it, and I bring this up because I did randomly think about this for the Big Ten the other day. It's Ohio State has 5. Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Michigan each have 2, and then Penn State has 1. If Michigan ends up winning again, they're only 2 games behind Ohio State, and Ohio State had been dominant for like the new millennium, right? So if Michigan were to somehow win a national championship, they would have the same amount of championships as Ohio State in the same time frame, even though Ohio State beat them like 13 years in a row or something, right? Talk about shitting down your leg, right? So I just pray every day that someday happens, because that would be a great thing to bring up, and it would drive Florida State mad, or not Ohio State's athletic director mad. He did meet with Ryan Day. They said that maybe Ryan Day should spend some more time with the defense. Did you read that article?
No.
Find it and read it, because it's insane. So the athletic director meets with Ryan Day, and they both had a discussion. He said, it's not my decision. I leave it up to Ryan, but let's just say that we've talked, and maybe at some point he's not going to call the plays anymore. So this year, Brian Hartline's going to start calling some plays, and that way Ryan Day can kind of, visit and check in on the defense during practice. And I thought, he's not doing that? He's literally at practice calling plays?
Yes.
And he called him the CEO of the football team. Which, what does that mean? You're just like the figurehead? Because I said that some coaches should be CEOs. They're usually like charismatic guys, right? Like Lane Kiffin could get away with being a CEO. Even like Jim Harbaugh recruits, and he's off the wall enough to kind of just stay away from play calling. But like Ryan Day doesn't strike me as that guy, right? So it's weird that the AD would bring that up.
But that may have just been more to keep Hartline from leaving to go somewhere else.
It makes it seem like Hartline's going to be the head coach soon.
He keeps developing receivers the way he is. He might.
Well, Ryan Day was developing quarterbacks. That hasn't paid off, Matt. Yeah, at some point, you have to spend some time with the defense. Maybe the AD has a point. You have anything else for the final bell?
No.
It should be around an hour or so. But thanks for listening to the crazy off season. If there's anything you want us to hit on, let us know. And we will see you next week.